Good morning and welcome. Delighted, Alex, you joined us again today. And today our guest is Richard Anderson. So welcome, Richard.
Thank you.
And today we're going to be talking about payments and different types of payments. And delighted. I know in the past, Alex, 2Token's done a lot of work in tokenization around payments. And I know we've discussed on other podcasts how we're seeing e-money, which is created by commercial banks, is now giving rise to D-money, and we're going to start seeing regulators having D-money licenses. And D-money, digital money, is backed typically by, it could be backed by zeros and dots, some sort of, say, crypto, say Bitcoin is an obvious example, or it could be backed by other assets. That might be money market funds, it might be cash in a bank, so it could be a central bank digital currency. But we're also seeing other types of assets where being backed by commodities or gold, and really, Richard, that's where you and ANGU, have I got the pronunciation?
You have indeed. That's perfect. Goodness. Well done, Johnny.
But ANGU stands for something else.
ANGU is actually derived from the Shona word for my or mine. I think it's more properly Yangu, but my ANGU. Which is what we're calling the business and the app, it gives all of those implications of my, mine, gold, the A and the U and all the rest of it.
All right. Well, before we get into ANGU, and you're going to have to explain what Shonas are. I know Shonas Matabili, but not everyone will do so. But we'll come back to that. Could you just explain a little bit about your background? And because you've got quite a rich background in payments and financial services sector, so you're using some of that knowledge and experience to create ANGU.
Yes, some years ago I was invited to join the board of Pay UK, which is the company in the UK that runs faster payments, backs and checks and credit. Indeed, I even chaired Check and Credit whilst it was introducing the digital imaging system that allows you to pay your checks in by taking a photograph on your mobile phone. So I chaired the organisation whilst that was finally implemented. But I've also worked for a small startup in the payment space, and I'm currently on the board of the group holdings board of a company that is heavily into payments infrastructure.
Okay, so you're bringing your knowledge of very much regulated in payments, and you've created ANGU, which is a form of it's a form of stablecoin. To keep it really simple, most people hopefully will understand a stablecoin.
So ANGU is an African word, is that it?
It is an African word, and it's. I understand. I'm no expert. I understand that it's a word that means my or mine. But the idea is that across various countries in Africa, there are an awful lot of US dollars which are currently sitting under mattresses, and
debt capital.
Absolutely.
Sitting there.
Absolutely, and it's effectively withdrawn from the economy. And the dollars that are actually circulating are quite literally a depreciating asset as they wear ever thinner until they fall to pieces like an autumn leaf. So it's not fair to say that I'm the founder. The founder is a guy called David Farley, who has lived in Africa for very many years, lived and worked in Africa. It's his brainchild, but I've come alongside him to help bring it to fruition.
And so you use the same payment rails that Vodafone and Safaricom started using 10 years ago?
No, we're not going to be using M-Pesa. Mm-hmm. What we're looking to do is to create a stablecoin that's backed by gold, on the basis that it's recognizable to the population of a number of the countries where we're
you nearly said which country then, didn't you?
No.
Sub-Sahara.
Sub-Saharan Africa. It's relevant to a number of countries where the population see gold as being a very safe asset. And of course it is in times of tribulation, as we've seen recently. Whereas they very frequently in a number of these countries have suffered from bad inflationary bouts. This will help to, we hope, create a functional currency that can be used for remittance, for savings, and for payments.
Just using their mobile device, their phone.
Using the mobile device.
So they don't need a bank account per se, but they can still make payments.
No, they won't need a bank account. They'll need a
Digital
wallet
wallet.
from us.
Yep.
And we will be, I don't know how yet, I'm not the techie in the room, but we will be using USSD, which is the technology that underpins M-Pesa, so that it can operate off SMS or SMS-like.
So you still use some of the infrastructure rails, but you're adding the stablecoin
Yes.
element to it.
Yes.
So that'll bring in programmability and peer-to-peer trading and swaps like that.
What we want to start with is simply reawakening these dormant dollars for payments. Of course, over the fullness of time, we will go in for programmability and for more complex contracts, but that's not the urgent need. That's where we might move to as we move towards version 2, version 3.
And how will local governments feel about, because you're basically dollarizing parts of Africa.
No, we're de-dollarizing.
Oh, that's interesting.
Ooh,
Explain.
But
We're taking the dollars out and replacing them with gold-backed tokens.
But priced in dollars or priced in the local currency?
It will be priced in the ANGU coin. So retailers will sell on an ANGU coin price.
But what is that ANGU? I now want to buy 10 litres of fuel for my tractor. And at the moment, let's just say I'm paying $1 a litre. How do I know what the ANGU price is?
Because there will be an exchange rate between dollars and ANGU tokens.
Okay.
But we're specifically taking it away from.
So you're going back to 1971.
Yes, we're
1
going
ounce.
We're going back in history, but the point is, it's about security and confidence that enables people to use money without being and hold money without being afraid that it's about to lose a significant portion of its value. It's also about, we're in a fractured world now, and that fractured world needs putting back together. And quite frankly, if there is a danger to using the dollar, particularly for some sub-Saharan countries, where the dollar owners, if I can put it that way, might not look as benignly on Africa as former regimes in the US might have done, it's as well to remove themselves from dependency.
So that's
on
interesting.
the dollar.
Yeah. Are there any numbers how many, how the de-dollarization is happening right now? In light of what's happening in the world with Trump and all the tariffs.
Well, arguably, there's been a big increase in dollarization through.
So you're saying the opposite
stablecoins.
then? So.
Well, but it has. If you look at the rise of stablecoins, have gone from a standing start to about 250 billion today, and Citibank reckon that could go to as much as 5 trillion in the next 5 years.
But those are
that,
stablecoins pegged to the dollar.
Yes, but against that, we're seeing other countries, the BRICS, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, saying, well, we want to create our own payment mechanism. So you're now seeing contracts, certainly in the Middle East, certainly in China, certainly in Russia, and they're not using the dollar as the payment mechanism. So there are two sides here of what one is you're seeing certainly in a lot of Latin America and in Africa to some extent, people are using stable coins, which are predominantly US denominated.
Indeed, the merchants who will accept our ANGU coin, we will be enabling them to be able to pay their suppliers, who are largely in China and Hong Kong, to be able to pay in Chinese or Hong Kong dollar stable coins.
Right. So to answer your question, I don't think it's not a one-way trade. It's not that there's more dollarization and there's no other if like de-dollarization, there's actually both are going on.
Indeed, some of those stablecoins are simply replacing existing dollars with a digital representation of the dollar.
Yeah. Because people are taking money out of their bank account and they're buying, tokenized money market funds.
But to be fair, those euros, those US stablecoin, USDC, USDT, being used more and more in international trade at the expense of the pound and the euro, right?
The pound has not been a functional international trade currency for quite some time.
It's only about 4%.
If I look back as far as Johnny's childhood, maybe we'd be able to find a time when it was a functional currency. But there's been an explicit attack on the nature of global trade, which inevitably means that people are not necessarily going to want to use the dollar.
That's right.
For the same purposes. So it wasn't our purpose, certainly wasn't David's purpose when he originally set this up to, in any sense, seek de-dollarization. And that's not an explicit aim of what we're doing, but it is a byproduct of which I'm very conscious.
But bizarrely, though, I know you're going to price it in ANGU, but if I give you £100, you're going to have to convert that £100 or 100 euros, 100 yen, or 100 Swiss francs into dollars.
No, I'm not.
To buy gold.
You could
to back the ANGU, surely.
I would convert it to gold.
No, but you can't. You got to. If you're going to go and buy gold and hold gold, typically that's bought and sold in dollars. Or am I wrong?
Well, so I'm probably outside of my expertise area, but I think that you can buy gold using sterling.
You can't use it using ANGU.
No, you can't. But it might be priced in dollars.
It's typically priced in dollars.
But there's no reason why I shouldn't go to a broker in London or in Switzerland and say I want to buy £100 worth of gold or 100 Swiss francs worth of gold. So I don't see that as being a particular problem. The issue is merely that that's how the price is stated today. Mm-hmm. Over time, could well change.
Yeah. Okay.
So we will accept, not immediately, over a period of time, we will onboard any currency that has a degree of international worth, if you like. We will accept any currency onto the platform, convert it into ANGU tokens.
Brilliant. And when do you hope to get the first ANGU project? I know you're talking to a couple of countries in Sub-Saharan Africa. What's the timeline are you working to?
Well, it depends.
How long's a bit of string?
Yeah, absolutely. My tech colleagues think that we can have an MVP up and running in a matter of weeks when they push the button to start the work. And we will have to have local regulatory approval. We're seeking that with one government at the moment and with the central bank. And we could be up and running
this year, hopefully.
This year.
Fantastic.
And so what kind of companies are you targeting? Or is that private individuals? Who is going to be using the ANGU?
It will be private individuals, it'll be retailers, it'll be importers. And, the nature of a lot of the economies we're talking SMEs, often micro businesses, but equally we'll be encouraging grandma in the middle of a village, in a remote village, to be onboarding her $100, $500, $1,000 onto the platform. We'll also be encouraging.
But grandma doesn't have a smartphone, so
well, I think you'd be surprised, and I think the experience in countries like Kenya is that, quite frankly, people do have phones that are capable of doing these transactions.
Yeah, I was involved in a project in 2015 with our Queen, and and we were helping the unbanked in India, and there was many people. I think 20% of the population are unbanked in India back then. This is 10 years ago now, and the big problem was that in order for those unbanked to become banked, they had to go to the nearest post office, which is sometimes half a day's walk, and hand out a smartphone to them. Of course, now we're 10 years later, so I'm assuming that has changed.
But the UPI payment system in India is ubiquitous, and there are several payment systems, I believe, in India, which are all mobile-based.
Yeah, but back then it wasn't, right?
No, absolutely. But the change is rapid.
Yes.
Well, certainly the last statistics I saw from the World Bank, there's 1.4 billion unbanked globally, but 66% have access to a mobile. It might be a tablet, or it might be not their mobile phone, but that someone in the family has got one that they can use. So
we're also interested in onboarding the diaspora of these countries.
Well, that's the big market, right? The diaspora is very big, and they bring money back to their home country.
Exactly.
That was the whole premise for M-Pesa.
So, yes, but we think that it's time to move on to this gold-backed token approach now.
So big market. That's meant to be $1 trillion a year by 2027, and the average is 6%. So the banks and typically the so-called sophisticated G7 economies, they're charging for the very poorest members of society, the carers, the shelf stackers, the security guards. They're charging them 6% to move their money, whereas the people that are employing them, all the shops, can do that at a fraction of the cost. So something like this would be a huge benefit for them.
And there are some territories in Africa where the cost of remittance may exceed 20%.
Yeah.
And it may involve the individuals driving hours to go into a neighbouring country to collect the cash and bring it back in. So
fraught with all sorts of risks and
we can totally remove that risk and reduce the cost significantly, and still represent an interesting proposition for the investors, because we will need some investment to back us up.
Well, with our working group Power of the Many, we are in fact looking at some Sub-Saharan countries in Africa where they want to pay for solar energy and also get rewarded for delivering solar energy that's generated there. With there's a lot of sun down there, and they're looking at payment rails like M-Pesa. So it might be something for your token to be involved in, because this is all tokenized energy.
Tokenized energy.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
That'd be very
look,
interesting.
Richard, thank you for coming in today and telling us about ANGU. How do people get more information about what you're doing, and where's the best place for them to go and have a look?
The best place at the moment is to drop me an email.
Okay.
I'm sure you can put my email details in.
Go on, tell the listeners though.
RCA, that's my initials. I like them so much, I took them twice. RCA@me.com.
RCA@me.com. Well, thank you very much for joining. Thank you, Alex. And you've been listening to a podcast brought to you by 2 Tokens. Thank you.
That was it for today's podcast. Thank you for listening in, and please subscribe so you don't miss out on our upcoming episodes. If you want to get in touch with us, you can find our contact details at www.2tokens.org.